Hi, I'm Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Haley, and today we are doing a read-alike video.
On The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss.
We did one of these videos a while back for Andy Weir's The Martian, and we both really liked that book, and we really enjoyed doing that video, so we thought we'd do another one for a book that we both really enjoy.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, we did not go back and watch that video. So I have no idea how many read-alikes we actually did in that one, but we're each going to do
2 and 1 shared.
Yeah, because we were fighting over one that we both agree is like the perfect read-alike, so.
I'm not even sure I'd say perfect, but it's the best one I can think
We both really wanted to put it on the list. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yes.
So I think I'm going first because I put her on the spot.
Yeah, I forgot.
Okay. So my first read-alike, and I think we talked about in the last one that there are like multiple doors through which you access literature and find a way that it interests you. So kind of like if you're looking for something in the theme of School of Magic, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling is the iconic School of Magic series. So it really kind of has that academic setting, and a lot of the books are just talking about the students having to get through doing their homework and preparing for their exams and just dealing with student life just in a fantastical setting. It feels really weird to be describing Harry Potter as if someone has somehow not heard of it and doesn't know what it's about.
For the one person who might view this video one day who hasn't heard of Harry Potter yet.
Hello, visitor from the distant future. Because, it's got to be like, an archaeology undergrad or something.
You're right. Probably.
2372 or something. Be like, what is Harry Potter? Anyways. Do you want to alternate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of in the same vein, I tried to think of one that was like an academic fantasy to kind of go into, and I picked this book right here, Lirail by Garth Nix. It is a story of a girl who is part of a tradition of like oracles, and they guard a library, a very, very fantastical and special magic library. And she becomes kind of a librarian through different reasonings, and it's kind of, a lot of it is just like her looking through the crap that's in the library. And some of it's kind of weird. It's like a library, museum, scary magic place. It's very interesting. It is the second book in a series, but you absolutely do not have to have read the first book. It was the first book in the series I read, and it read completely like fine and legibly. There was no, it doesn't follow any of the same characters. There's like one brief introduction of a previous character, and it's not a big deal. And I think the reasons why it really pairs well for The Name of the Wind is that it's super dense. There's like a lot of it, especially for a YA novel, and it is...
I didn't realize that was a YA novel.
It is a YA novel. Like, you wouldn't think looking at it that it is, but it is. And it's very, like, introspective. There's a lot of, like, talking about the goings-on and theories about different things and the way they work, and I think that if you like Name of the Wind, you're almost guaranteed to like it. So, though she's a very different character from Kvothe.
This book is on my TBR, and I think it just got bumped up a few places by the description.
Like, she is like the opposite of Kvothe. It's weird. So.
So my next one is another one that I feel like I've talked about a lot in this channel, but is Anitha by Neil Stephenson. It's one of my favorite books, but why I think it's a good read-alike for The Name of the Wind is it is sci-fi, not fantasy, but I mean, like, it is dense. It's got kind of an academic feel, and very rich world building. It is about this order of like pseudo monastic scholars, that, like, they're not religious, but they're an order that secludes themselves away and, live in sort of monasteries that are devoted to science and research, and more than anything, really just learning. And it just has a lot of the same feels of, it is this just richly textured world, and has this sort of alienness to it, while at the same time being very comfortable, very just kind of slice of life. It has a group of friends trying to figure out a mystery, kind of in the same way that Name of the Wind has sort of an overarching mystery that is the, like, driver of the plot, even if it a lot of times fades into the background, which definitely happens in Anthem at times. It also, point of similarity that I hadn't thought of until just now, has a degree of the same, like, story within a story, because Anthem is written as, like, not even a memoir exactly, but just an account of the events that, you don't know why they are significant at the start of the book and so on, but, explaining this big thing that is happening, and it's like a, first-hand primary resource historical document type thing. I mean, written by somebody who's like, there are people who are going to want to read this in 1,000 years.
But not in the sense of like a log or something.
No, it's just literally just someone I'm writing down my experience of this. I'm telling the story. So it just kind of has that same, like, I mean, it's not. I'd argue the narrator is as reliable as they're able to be, whereas Kvothe is definitely a questionably reliable narrator at times, and it's less like heavy-handed with it, but it has that same kind of feel, and I sort of enjoyed that in both of them. So I mean,
Yeah,
though it's a much lighter touch in Anthem. I mean, there's no jumps forward in Anthem or anything like that, like there are in Kvothe, where you're in multiple points in time. But anyways, I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it to anyone who might, or who's just like looking for something similar to it, but is looking for something more sci-fi, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely more sci-fi. Like soft sci-fi, but sci-fi.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, honestly, hard sci-fi.
It's
theoretical sci-fi.
It also talks a lot about philosophy, which in a kind of an academic-y setting, and it's surprisingly educational for all that it's in a fictional world. You'll learn a lot about real-world schools of philosophical thought and so on, and I mean, I did at least. So, I mean, I really liked it, and I think that it is an excellent read-alike for Anitha if you're looking for something a bit more sci-fi, but with a lot of the same feels.
I would agree with that. My next pick is the Inherit. It's more than one book technically, because I mean, the whole series obviously is a good read-alike in my opinion. Is The Inheritance Cycle by Christian Paolini, which is like the Aragon books. If you're not familiar with the like collective title, and it's. I feel weird picking it because they're so tonally different, even though they're both fantasy worlds. Like, this is a YA that reads much more like a YA. Like, almost middle grade in parts. But, the magic system is basically the same. At least the core of it. Like, weirdly the same. To the point where I couldn't stop thinking about it while reading Name of the Wind, so I really wanted to include it. The whole, like, there being true names for things, like the most true name for something, and that giving you power when you know the true name, features heavily in both of these stories, and I think it makes them very similar in a lot of ways. Also, I think that Aragon and Kvothe are very similar people. Just in who they are as people. Like, not exactly, but they have a lot of similarities, and if you liked one, I think you will like the other, even if you're not super into, like, middle grade YA books. Um, because the fantasy is very familiar. It's very Tolkienian. You'll be able to relate to it. And also, the female characters are underdeveloped, just like in Name of the Wind. I guess that's all I really have to say about that one. It was my least... I think it is the least the same, but I really wanted to mention it, so I don't really have as much to say about that one as I did about Lirael. Except for maybe, it is also very scary. There are a couple of very scary characters that barely interact in The Name of the Wind that are kind of the driving force behind the plot. Assuming that if you're watching this video, you probably would have read Name of the Wind. Minor spoiler. Okay, we'll put a timestamp here about when I'm done making my little spoiler. But, they're like fairy creatures that are like terrifying and come and kill people who like say their names or acknowledge them, basically. Well, in Aragon, there are also like scary, terrifying, like fairy tale-esque creatures who like seem to be like preternaturally able to find you, and in both cases they are very, very scary. So that is another kind of doorway into spoiler. And the last bit that is kind of our together pick, because we both agree that it is a wonderful read-alike for Name of the Wind. And you should definitely get into it, because we all know that Patrick Rothfuss is just never going to finish it. He's just going to leave us hanging forever and ever. We're never going to know how it ends.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of is the, like, I feel like the cliche, you know, when is the third one coming out? It's, in my mind, surpassed Game of Thrones, Half-Life 3.
And it's all in good fun teasing. Writing is really hard.
We love you, Patrick Rothfuss.
We love you, Patrick. And I know that he's, like, very stressed about like fans' pressure to finish his book.
No, seriously, on the extreme off chance that you end up watching this, we are fine. Take your time. Do it right. We have confidence in you. We know you'll do it.
That's the whole point of this video, is to find other things to read in the meantime. Which we know you would approve of, because you love to write blurbs.
He's everywhere on Goodreads. He really is.
Yeah, he really is.
Anyways.
But our final, like, we both agree it is the best read-alike for Name of the Wind, is the Kushiel's Dart series by Jacqueline Carey. And I would even just say Kushiel's Dart, the first one, is specifically a good read-alike for Name of the Wind.
I think I'd agree with that. I don't know if I'd say it's like the best read-alike, because that's hard to... It's different doors and all that, but it's a good one, and it was one that just needed to be on that list.
Yes. Well, and I was mostly saying that because I think that Name of the Wind and Kushiel's Dart pair very well, and then also A Wise Man's Fear pairs very well with Kushiel's Chosen, the second book, because there's a whole travel aspect and things like that.
You know, that's true. I hadn't really thought of that aspect of it, partly because I don't remember Kushiel's Chosen as well. Or rather, I mean, I remember it, but I don't remember what was in what book and all that. It kind of...
You did read them kind of all together, like right there.
Yeah. There was a big break between the, like, first and second read, and then, like, I read, like, 2 and 3, or, yeah, 2 and 3, like, really close together.
But, anyway.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just like, I should, like, turn it back to the point. So, some things about the Kushiel's Dart series are, that are different and, like, worth noting. That series deals heavily with sex and issues of consent and, like, not your standard, everyday, vanilla type stuff. So, go into it prepared. Read some blurbs. Like, read some reviews. Because I'm not going to go into it on YouTube. But you should. Just be aware of what you're getting into before you read it. But it is...
Don't let that scare you off, though, either.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to scare anybody off, just like...
Sorry.
Big shake. I just didn't want anybody to go in expecting the level of... for the rating to be the same as the
Name
The
of
Name
the
of the
Wind.
Wind, yeah.
No. Name of the Wind, even in the bits that are like arguably all about having sex, are so incredibly circumspect in how they refer to it. And while, I mean, Kushiel's Dart is not. It's so difficult to say because it's like, it's tastefully done. It's just also pretty explicit at times.
Yeah. It's not erotica, it just happens to be that sex is the main theme of the book. So
Yeah.
be prepared for that. It's basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But Kushiel's Dart is the story of a young girl who grows up in a temple that is like full of sacred harlots. I think is the easiest way to
Yeah.
explain it. Yeah. And through series of events, she becomes involved in some intrigue on countrywide levels.
Yeah, it's not exactly like court intrigue. It's more like grand adventure in a lot of ways.
Just
I-
with lots of intrigue involved.
And the world building is like spectacular.
So good.
It's very difficult to in any way like concisely even sort of summarize.
Without just ruining stuff for you. I don't want to ruin stuff for you. I want you to read the book.
But the I guess you might call it like the mythology of the setting is so it's not high fantasy. There are not or rather there's not like tons of that's the wrong word for it. It's not like
it's high fantasy. It's just not like Tolkienian.
It's not high magic is really what I meant to say. Like there are not elves and dwarves and dragons and whatnot that we've seen. Though, I mean, I wouldn't entirely put it past it. But the point being is, like, the mythology in terms of, like, the religions. Religion is a major, like, aspect of the books, and it's just so very well done. And it has this, like, nice blending of, it seems... In fact, I think it is, like, the geography is the same as the real world, but the, like, countries are not, or something.
It's not exactly the same, but it's clearly influenced.
There's this, the whole time I was reading it, it was just this sort of, like, you sort of got sucked into it because it had just enough, like, connection to reality that it just added this, like, tinge of authenticity to everything, while at the same time being radically different.
The world is, like, essentially, like, our world, but with some different names. But if Jesus, like, it was through a Christian viewpoint where, like, the gods are, like, this is a very Christian country in that sense, except for Jesus was not the last prophet. There is another post-Jesus demigodish character.
Yeah, I can't remember what the origin mythology was of it.
Yeah, and I don't want to get totally into it, but it's very influenced by myths that are very Christian, and some myths that are very Jewish. I don't like to use the term Judeo-Christian, really, but, like, there are both going on in there. It's not just Christian.
And it's one of those things that, I also don't want to scare anyone off by saying that, because it is not, I think, like, I mean, it's not Christian fiction.
You'll just be able to see the mythology.
Yeah, it's drawing on these as literary influences, not, it's not a piece of Christian fiction or anything like that. I would not enjoy such. And,
no, definitely not.
So don't let that scare you off either, if that's something that's just kind of like, I don't know if I want to read, like, it's not Narnia, it's not,
No, it's very, very different. It just has influences that will feel very familiar in the same way that, like, in Name of the Wind, the fairy tales are very familiar. The things they talk...
Yeah.
The Shamblemen are familiar. You, like, can connect that those are zombies. The dragon thing is, like, obviously, like, oh, this is just a creature that we've turned into a dragon in our minds.
Yeah.
Like... There are things that are familiar and make sense. it's just they have really similar levels of like world building and traveling between different places and like scope, like the bigness of them.
That it focuses on one character while at the same time you sort of feel like it's trying to tell an entire world story.
Yes, exactly.
It's very good.
Without it being like you are the one and chosen hero. Like
no, I
it's
mean
through like their effort of will.
they're not like insignificant people, but at the same time, no, it's not. You are the chosen one, the hero that saves the world, or whatever. It's really good. It's strong recommend. There's a lot of definite like points of congruity with Name of the Wind.
And I think that wraps up our read-alikes. I feel like we talked a lot about the Kashiel series. I would persuade you to read it. Specifically, the first 3 books in the series, because she actually did eventually go on to write, like, 9 more books?
I don't know. I haven't read them all.
But they do not follow the same character, and the first 3 are very self-contained. They are their own story. You do not have to continue past that to feel like you have a finished point.
If you want to continue to read more stories in the world, you absolutely can. But, I mean, it's... yeah.
Like, I've read, like, I think 3 of the other novels, and they are very good, but those first 3 really are what I'm talking about being a good read-alike. So,
yeah. But yeah, so, I mean, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. We would love to hear in the comments what your favorite read-alike for Name of the Wind is. That's not even just idle pandering for comments or anything like that.
That's like, give me suggestions.
Yeah,
for
no,
other
seriously,
books
we
to
want those. And, hit subscribe if you want to see more videos from us. Links to all the books we talked about, our social media, etc., are down in the doodly-doo. And we'll see y'all again next time.